Hardhat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
All right, welcome in, John Zannis, Bobby Manning, and we're here to cover a little bit of Celtics news here as Payton Pritchard, as expected, Bobby, wins the 2024-25 NBA Sixth Man of the Year. Won it pretty comfortably here. A landslide, got the majority of the first place votes, I think 82 first place votes overall. So well-deserved honor for Payton Pritchard, and this has been trending this way for most of the season. And yeah, I'll let you take a victory lap a little bit later in the show, but first we'll talk about just Pritchard and how we got to this point. Yeah, honestly, Bobby, it's not even fair to not talk about your prediction at the beginning of the year, because this is kind of what it was all about. We knew Payton Pritchard was doing good things for the Celtics, and we knew that he was, you know, an up-and-coming player, and we just kind of questioned what his limits were. Was he a nice little guy who could come in for a bench, you know, Sparky, as Jimmy likes to call him?
Yeah.
Or was he the type of guy who could do it? And this is it. Will he play enough minutes? That's the question. He did 28 plus minutes a game. And this is Bobby and Sherrod both predicting in the in our preseason bold predictions that Payton
Best
Pritchard
bold prediction ever.
would win the Sixth Man of the Year. And it was bold. And we didn't think it was possible because my main issue was he's not even your sixth man. He's your seventh man, maybe your eighth man. I wasn't sure who he would be, but in terms of minutes, he played more minutes per game this year than Al Horford did.
Yeah, and it started in that early stretch to open the season, because you could probably go back to 5 or 6 games at least through the first quarter of the season where starters got off to awful starts. Horford was in the starting lineup at that point. Remember, Porzingis was out, so he wasn't the sixth man. So Pritchard slid up to that spot. And oftentimes, Boston was down in those games. He came in, gave a massive spark, boosted their energy level, got great quality three-pointers off, and lifted them to some wins during that opening stretch there. And I think that gave him such a commanding lead early. I mean, we were talking about him winning this thing 20, 25 games into the year, because that's how far of a lead he built for himself over the field here. Now, when I was going through who I'd pick for this, John, before the season ended there, it did get a little closer. And I'm surprised he won in this big of a blowout.
Yeah.
Because you look at Malik Beasley, he had better stats than him offensively. Pritchard. Naz Reid had another monster year after winning it last year. And Ty Jerome was great too. And he just scored, 28 the other night for Cleveland. So this probably should have been a closer vote. But I think when you build a lead like Pritchard did early, that sticks with people. I think there's an argument. And I would have voted for Pritchard if I had a vote, because of his well-roundedness, and he impacted every area of the game for them, and his defense allowed him to play those kind of minutes.
Yeah, and it's more than that. His shooting splits were considerably more impressive than the other competitors. That was one, but also I think there's two things why he won it and why he deservedly won it. And I'm, you know me, Bobby, I'm not a homer for the sake of being a homer.
Right, neither am I.
You know, and so I'll never just be like, he should have won because he's a Celtic. I don't believe that. I absolutely think he deserved, because I think you have to consider doing that on this team is all the more impressive. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, that is a big deal. You have this much talent and you can make this big an impact that not only, you know, when your number is called, but what we talked about with Pritchard, what he was such a revelation this year, Bobby, was that you couldn't wait for his minutes. He was so often a spark. And a lot of times during times where their offense had stagnated during that period of the year, and those times where you didn't love what the starters, I mean, Pritchard.
All you have to do is look back to Sunday.
And
look at how Sunday's game went.
No doubt. But look at the starter splits this year are the reason why is one of the big reasons why Pritchard was so valuable, because the Celtics starters finished pretty much dead even in net rating this year when they were together. Granted, they weren't together that often, but Pritchard was necessary. That second unit, and when Pritchard would come in, an automatic spark and shoulder a big part of the offensive load, and the way that they played together with that second unit, with that Tatum, Hauser, Pritchard, Cornette, and they made a lot of moves in games when those guys came on, and Pritchard was such a huge part of it. And sometimes single-handedly, he was their entire offense for stretches. So
think of the holiday season too.
Yeah.
He had such a down year shooting. The Celtics were worse with Holiday on the floor compared to off, especially offensively this year. And Pritchard, the offense boomed in his minutes. They were much better with him on the floor compared to when he was off. And for a guy who could have potentially been a defensive liability, maybe was at points early in his career, his ability to survive on that end. And it's the Hauser conversation we had last year, right? You're not the best defender in the league because of the defensive rating there. But I do think a strong defensive rating for Pritchard and some good defensive numbers this year reflected growth on that end for him and his ability to not be a target out there. And you look at the playoffs now, I think we still had some questions about where did this translate to the postseason. One game in against a tough defense, against a team that I thought would give him a lot of trouble, he gave them the same kind of impact in that game. And I think with him, you go back a couple of years, John, and we've had the debate this year, even better competition. Does he play worse or is it less opportunity? I think you could see the shades of this. Obviously, Sherrod and I did in the preseason, but even going back to last year and the year before that, in the games where they play him 30 minutes and other guys were out, he carried the ship pretty comfortably. They won a lot of games where he was the guy running the show. And even in the breakdown video I mentioned the other day, there are moments where he's able to exploit mismatches on the level of a star. So does he step into a bigger role next year? Is this a sign that, all right, maybe we haven't seen the ceiling with him yet, that there's another level he could go to for this team? After the leap we saw this year, I don't think you can put it out of the question, because from what he's talked about, from what everyone in the team has seen from him in terms of the work ethic, I don't think he's going to exit this year satisfied, patting himself on the back for winning sixth man and saying, that's it. I think he wants to be a starter in this league. I think he wants to show that he can do this at an even higher level coming off this season. So I'm excited to see what's next for him.
That's always the question with Pritchard. Is it, as you pointed out, what is the ceiling? How much higher can it get? That's what we debated throughout the year. Like, is this the type of guy that if you put him on a middling team, or a team that, didn't have that many scoring options, is he a 20-point per game guy? I don't know that he can play more than 28, 29 NBA minutes, just, because of his size and because, it's a lot, but maybe we're wrong. Like maybe he could hold up. Maybe the positive outweighs the negative so significantly that he absolutely
Is it Isaiah all over again?
Yeah, that he absolutely could start for a lot of different teams. And again, yeah, are you going to be like, oh, geez, they're hunting Pritchard? Yeah, but there's other guys in this league who they're so good offensively and they can remain competitive defensively enough so that they are not getting played off the court. With Pritchard, again, you're always worried about his numbers. Are they empty calorie stats? Is he out there bombs away against other teams' crap second units, but he withers against tougher teams, more physical teams, better defensive teams, and come the playoffs, his minutes are going to go from 28 down to 18. And if he gets hot from three, maybe you get a good Pritchard game, but he's a non-factor most of the postseason run because they're just afraid to use him as things get a little bit tougher and the teams get bigger, tougher, more physical, faster. And that was the most encouraging thing, I think, from game one. The headline was Derek White, game one versus Orlando. The headline was Derek White for what he did carrying a Celtics offense when their big three scorers all stumbled and struggled. But Pritchard was just as big, if not bigger, in his role. And I was still questioning what they planned to do with him. I was stunned that he came on, looked pretty good in the start, but only got 7 first half minutes in that game one, Bobby. And I think Joe was kind of reverted into last year Payton Pritchard mode. Got to use these guys sparingly. Got to really play the starters. Maybe Pritchard was slated for only 15 minutes in this game. And then he realized, like, nah, I got to ride this guy. And that's the thing is, like, you can ride him, not just in the second unit. We've questioned whether he should be closing certain games, and we've seen him do it during the regular season, even with White and Holiday both available. And now, as you're talking about it, Bobby, with Jaylen Brown and now possibly Jason Tatum being offensively limited, how important could Pritchard possibly become here for the Celtics, carrying an even larger offensive load?
If they want to play smaller, more offensive lineups, he has to be. And
Yeah.
that's what you saw in the first game, too, is they tried to do the Luke Al thing in the first half. Luke only played 1 minute after halftime, and they went in the Pritchard direction there. The 3-guard lineups didn't work great during the year, but you might see those return if Tatum's going to be out for a game here.
Yeah.
Try it against an Orlando team that you can spread out and challenge with more shooting there at that point. Try to break that defense with more offensive versatility. So I could definitely see it. I still think there's going to be some times this postseason. I know I'm going to die on this hill where teams try to take advantage of Holiday a little bit, and you might end up having games where Pritchard's a better option down the stretch. Obviously, Holiday blew that up in the first game here. He was awesome, and it looks like the three-pointer's back in a big way for him since the break and that finger injury. So it's looking like Holiday can hold his own for now, but even beyond this postseason, John,
Yeah.
it's the era of parity. It's the era of not being able to have an expensive roster.
It's the era of having the greatest contract in the NBA right now with Pritchard. You have the value of that is just through the roof.
Right. So if there's an opportunity this summer to move off some money in the starting lineup, I'm not going to get into who it could be or this or that. It's the Pritchards of the world who have to step up on your roster and become even more reliable players in bigger roles for you to keep this run going. And they're lucky they have him on this deal. They're lucky that he's continued to progress to the point where you could even dream of him being a starter here. And I think he will be a starter next year. I think he's going to be, based on where this is going, where this roster might have to go with the money and all that. I think that's where this is headed, and this is a real momentum play this postseason to see if he'd be ready for something like that. And you mentioned it with the Tatum injury. Here's an opportunity right now for you to go out and grab 30 minutes for this team in a big spot against a tough defense and show that you can do it here. And he was just phenomenal in that first game. I thought he was maybe the player of the game alongside White.
Yeah, he really was. We're going to continue on our conversation here. Quick note, we just want to let you know that this segment here, this little Garden Report insert that we're doing is brought to you, as always, by Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play 5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play 5. Prize Picks, run your game. Also, Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Once again, download the Game Time app today. Use that code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. And yeah, we're not done. If you're hiring, check out LinkedIn. Absolutely. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/garden. That's linkedin.com/garden. Go there, post your job for free. If you are hiring, great opportunity here to get a free posting on LinkedIn when once again you go to linkedin.com/garden. Back to the Payton Pritchard stuff and the 6th Man of the Year award here, Bobby. And again, I have to give you your flowers because of that bold prediction that we'd said here. And you know, the point of the bold predictions, Bobby, is to say something that's like very unlikely to happen.
This is the perfect one.
So I'll ask you, how unlikely did you think this was when you made the prediction? Because usually I go with mine relatively unlikely, but not crazy. You know, like some of them are possible. Did you really think that this was possible at the beginning of the year?
Only because of the preseason he had. And that's what caused me to say it, is that he put up the kind of stats we saw from him during the year, the 20-point games, the 40% shooting, the incredible offensive creation ability in that preseason stretch there. You saw it in those Abu Dhabi games. Then it flowed over to the games after that. And you said, all right, there's opportunity here for him to play more this year. And if he can seize that, and if that's consistent, why not? Because there was no one else going into this year. We were talking about Malcolm Brogdon, who wasn't even a thought in this, being one of the favorites for this. And if you look back at the preseason leaderboard, he wasn't in the mix there, but you saw the Naz Reids of the world, and there were some other guys who were hurt, and you just didn't see a real favorite emerging there. And that's when I started to say, all right, it's at least feasible here. Like, there's no one who stands out and has a role this defined off a bench that you say, all right, they're going to go get this, and Pritchard can't really beat that guy. Naz Reid's probably the only one Jerome obviously wasn't on my radar. Beasley came out of nowhere for this thing as well. So again, this was a close race. I'm surprised he got 82 votes. Like, I think if you looked at this objectively, this could have been a much closer race here. But I think a lot of people made their mind up on Pritchard based on the start he had and kind of just threw it in their backpack and took it to the finish line there. So I actually had a hard time picking this one personally in the end, just being fair about it. Because you do look at Beasley's stats and some of them are a little better. He was second in the league in threes by 1 3 to Anthony Edwards. So and think of what he did for Detroit. I mean, this Detroit season was just absurd. And yeah, he deserves some credit for that. But I think Pritchard beat him out by a hair in my mind. And again, the impact he had on the third best team in the league here in Boston. So I think well deserved. Did I actually think he was going to do it? Again, I thought it was feasible. It seemed like a long shot then. I don't gamble, but you think of what the odds would have been with this thing, plus 7,000. I mean, it's something like that. I hope someone cashed in on that. It wasn't me.
You got to put your money where your bold predictions mouth
that
is.
That doesn't seem ethical, John.
Next year. We're not talking about ethics. We're talking about cash, Bobby. No, but I get it. Anyway, it was a good.
Give Sherrod his credit, and you know what? Give
Sherrod, and obviously, credit. And Joe Sway gets some credit, and Noah. All huge proponents of Payton Pritchard. Jimmy loved his sparkiness. To me, again, I've always been a little dubious because I did feel that it was a little bit empty calories. I think last year's playoffs not soured me, but kind of set the set the baseline for what I thought Pritchard was, which was a guy who can provide a little spark. An NBA player, no doubt. I even questioned whether he was that. I thought he might have been a 4A guy, and that he wasn't going to be able to crack a rotation and be a reliable player. And it proved me wrong last year. But you got to the playoffs, and again, he really was a non-factor. And that
I was just going to go there.
Yeah, hesitation to use him kind of made me think, like, I just don't think he's going to ever be trusted enough. But to his credit, and again, I think he falls in the same bucket as Luke. What we didn't allow for, or maybe I didn't allow for in each of these conversations, was the continued improvement. Like, I thought Pritchard was what he was, a guy who could light it up, but against select competition and would get played off the floor too often to be able to be a type of regular contributor that you could count on for close to 30 minutes a night and into the postseason. He got better. He's very competitive on defense. His rebounding is great. His passing improved. He doesn't turn the ball over. That's something he's always had in his corner. And just to be able to shoot the way he shot at volume is really amazing. The 47-41 splits are really unbelievable for the type of shots that he takes. And the breaking guys down off the dribble, getting to the basket. In the early days of Payton Pritchard, he could not get anywhere near the basket without that shot getting thrown back.
I still think that's his swing skill in a lot of these games. Does he have access to the basket? And he got there against Orlando.
And he got there against Orlando, which was very impressive. Yes.
Right. And that's when he's at his best. That's when you know you're going to be getting 15, 20 from him, is when he has that in his pocket. And then, he gets to the mid-range too. And I think that's useful for this team at times with all the threes, is he can step inside and get a good shot in that area when necessary. And you go back there was a lot of good stories about him this year. I know Noah wrote one. I wrote one as well. Giving up the alcohol, the training sessions he did over the summer, inviting overseas players over to come and guard him and just challenge him in different ways. They're throwing money around for free throw competitions. It's a lot of great stuff like that. And we've known, just from all the different stories over the year, that he never stops working, and basketball is like the only thing in his life he cares about. He even went to homeschool to make that happen.
So did Jimmy, but it didn't.
There's been a lot of great stories.
Yeah.
But back to your playoff point, I thought my favorite detail in any Pritchard story this year was from Jay King over The Athletic, who got him to talk about how, even though we remember those 2 big shots from the playoffs last year, and those were like the moments of the run for the team, he really didn't have a great playoff run.
Not at all.
He was marginalized at times. And even in that final series, those were really, when you look back on it, 2 out of the 7 shots he hit in the series, there were 2 games where he went 0 for 11 combined.
Yeah.
And that stuck with him. There was a lot of pats on the back. You're a champion. You're great. You had those shots. But he came out of that run like, I wasn't good enough to play. I got to get even better here. Yeah. And I think that drove him going into this year too.
Yeah, no doubt. So again, you love having a guy like this on your team because uh, of all of that stuff. Like it's like a true dirt dog. He's a gym rat. I mean, they say you throw these things around, and usually when you throw them around with players, you're just basically calling them like little engines that could, like guys who they try hard, but they can only go so far. Like Pritchard's kind of dispelling that because he's getting a lot farther than a lot of people thought someone with his physical profile would be able to get. And it really is remarkable. I did not think this is, and his story's not over, but I did not think he would reach even these heights. To think
How
that
old is he? 27, 28? I think he's my age.
Yeah, to think that he could even get better and be more of a contributor or potentially be a starter on a championship caliber team, something I never would have guessed for him. So a deserved honor. I don't disagree with the voting. I think there's a lot of reasons why he was the clear choice. But as you mentioned, a lot of momentum early. People put it in their back pocket. But to me, it's the
the other reason I picked him?
I think it's doing it on a team of this caliber is what's most impressive for me.
The other reason I picked him?
Why?
Per 36 stats.
Oh, you love those. You love your per 36. So anyway, we just wanted to pop in and tell you guys about the Payton Pritchard situation. Kudos to Pritchard here as he wins Sixth Man of the Year, the fourth Celtic in history to win it. Bobby, can you name the other three?
Oh, geez. McHale, Brogdon, of course.
Yeah.
I don't have the other one.
Bill Walton. Celtics.
Bill Walton.
The McHale, the Celtics had won it 3 years in a row with McHale.
McHale was coming off the bench back then, huh?
McHale. Well, because of Max.
Yeah.
Max, he started when they won it that year, the 86 year, but he won Sixth Man the 2 years before that. And then Max was traded and Walton came here and Walton won it that 85-86 season.
This is kind of a Celtics award, right? Havlicek. It's called the Havlicek Award, right? Yeah. And then you got Walton and McHale and then Brogdon and Pritchard.
They owned it.
Celtics.
They had those 3 years in a row.
Isaiah was the sixth man when he first got here. I think people forget that.
Yeah, exactly. So fourth to win it, fifth all time, as McHale had won it twice back-to-back years there, 83-84 and 84-85. So hats off to Payton Pritchard. A couple other things we want to let you know. This show and this segment is, as you know, part of the Garden Report, which is part of the CLNS Media Network. So we want to let you know to support us and subscribe to the CLNS Media Network on YouTube, either the main channel or our Celtics All Access channel, where you find our Garden Report post-game shows live. Turn on your notifications, and you'll be notified when new videos come across. But also, there's just a lot more stuff on there than just me and Bobby yapping about basketball. A lot of great podcasts, a lot of great content. So please do that. You can also subscribe to the Garden Report podcast audio as well, and leave us a review, give us a rating, give us a like, do whatever you want there. But yeah, please support us. You can always listen back to all of our episodes on audio as well if podcasting is your thing. And last thing we want to tell you, merch is available. If you want to get your hard hats and some other really cool items that Jimmy Toscano's been in the lab cooking up, 15 more is our promo code for 20% off the merch store. 15 more as in 15 more wins for another banner. That's what we have. We'll be running this promo all playoffs long, and we'll be changing out the promo codes. But anyway, 15 more is the promo code, 20% off the merch store right now. You can go check that out right away and grab some of our cool Garden Report and Celtics related merch. Once again, Payton Pritchard wins the Sixth Man of the Year. We will have much more on the Celtics in the Garden Report postgame show on Wednesday, as it is Game 2 at TD Garden, Celtics and the Magic. Thank you guys for watching this, and we will see you later.